Welcome, my name is Emma Davis. A look at our stories. Senior lecturer at the University of Ghana, Dr. Priscilla Chumesi-Bafo, is pressing on government to ensure fiscal discipline in order to achieve the macroeconomic targets in the 2024 budget. According to her, the weakness in the economy is influenced by overspending in some sectors, which does not benefit the real sector. She spoke to journalists at the 2024 Post-Budget Forum by KPMG and UNDP.
I think that from where we have come from, a single-digit inflation, the economy has gone through tough times, reaching an all-time high of 54%. And so in that sense, the 15% is a moderate, what do we call it, target, although I must say that it is achievable, but it has to be achieved with a lot of discipline, particularly discipline on the fiscal side, in the sense that the gains we are seeing as a result of some of the constraints that have been put in place. And given that 2024 is an election year, it is something that we are watching the space to see whether the target is something that would be achieved. How would this target be achieved? I think that when you go into the determinants of inflation, food is one of the key determinants. And so, for instance, if the Planting for Food and Jobs program, the phase 2, is taking off with emphasis on placing value addition, then essentially I believe that it should not be an unattainable target, but looking at where we've come from, if we are not able to control and maintain the stability on the exchange rate front, we know that a lot of the inflation is as a result also of the volatilities in the currency. So all these are at play, but I think that overall I would say that it's okay.
Still with the 2024 Post-Budget Forum, the United Nations Development Programme has lauded government's quest to concentrate on meeting some targets of the Sustainable Development Goals in the 2024 budget. According to the UN agency, issues of tax waivers on raw materials for locally produced sanitary parts and the allocation of funds for agriculture and job creation for the youth will help in meeting key targets of the SDGs. Here's Chief Economist for Ghana and the Gambia, Dr. Fatmata Cisse.
The forum was aimed at bringing out some perspectives on key policies in the 2024 budget for the private sector. The government said it is committed to supporting private sector growth with the introduction of some tax waivers and policies in the budget. Reacting to the developments, Chief Economist at the UNDP, Fatmata Cisse, lauded the initiative and urged private sector businesses to take advantage and participate in some of the initiatives.
But especially for their contribution to the SDGs. Already, financing has been established here in Ghana of what it takes to achieve the SDGs. And the information is Ghana needs $43 billion every year to be able to achieve the SDGs. That's a huge budget. So regardless of the initiatives, which are of course commendable that we see on the budget for 2024, it means there's a big room for many other stakeholders to play a part in achieving the SDGs. There's the Youth Start program that government is working on. There's a work around MSMEs and actually moving people from the informal sector to the formal sector. There's a lot of poverty reduction initiatives that the government has.
Meanwhile, senior partner at KPMG, Anthony Sapon, believes the budget will set a growth path for businesses if all the policies are implemented to the letter.
Most of the economic indicators really went on a flight: inflation, exchange rate. And these are not signs that are good for business, because businesses need stable macroeconomic environment so they can predict with some reasonable certainty. So this budget being anchored in the theme of pursuing macroeconomic stability and growth, it's really fundamental for our journey into stabilizing the economy. And you see that from middle of this year, the signals have started showing inflation coming down, September at 38%, and of course 35% in October. the exchange rate relatively has stabilized. And this is a signal that the budget should anchor these stabilities. And when the budget does that, then it allows businesses to be able to plan, it allows businesses to be able to forecast with reasonable certainty and plan their growth.
The KPMG UNDP Post-Budget Forum was under the theme, Pursuing Growth Within a Stable Macroeconomic Environment.
Finance and Economics lecturer at the University of Ghana, Dr. Patrick Esumin, says failure by government to address challenges confronting its public expenditure framework will continue to affect the fiscals of the economy. He says these loopholes will always throw government out of its budgets. Interacting with my colleague James Ishen at the Graphic Business Stanbic Bank breakfast meeting, Dr. Esumin stressed on the need for more expenditure cuts.
There are long-term things we can do and there are short-term things we can do. I think over the long term, really, the political business cycle is a result of the governance system that we run. A governance system that gives always an incentive to the ruling government to try and overspend. So that's one part. But the other thing is that we have our fiscal or our public expenditure framework has a lot of loopholes that allow political actors to spend outside of the budget. So I think that is the immediate thing we can do is try and then strengthen our expenditure control measures and to ensure that people are not spending outside of the budget. That is usually the main source of the overspending that comes. People making expenditures outside of the ones that are approved by the budget.
Talking about expenditure and looking at the budget, what we've seen so far, what was being read in the budget, do you think we are making headway somewhere?
Well, that's for next year. I mean, for this year, I've been pleasantly surprised that we've kept expenditure under wraps, especially when the revenue has underperformed. We've seen that because the revenue is underperforming, the government has managed to rein in expenditure. Although my preference would have been the expenditure cuts would have come from the wages and salaries and compensation. As it is, most of the cuts have been coming from capital expenditure, which has implications for our long-term growth. But at least we've seen that the government is trying to keep the fiscal deficit under wraps, so hopefully that will continue.
Now, Doc, let me bring you to that of the cedi. We've had the Association of Forex Bureaus saying going to the festive season, there's a likelihood the cedi will depreciate. The cedi is now hovering around 12 cedis thereabouts. What is your expectation going into the festive season, basically?
Well, I think we begin to see wobbles, as you are saying, and so we go to the festive season, we go to the reporting season, and then so the pressure is likely to come to bear on the currency, except if we're able to finalize the cocoa syndicated loan, which will bring us some relief, will help us with the reserves, and also if the second tranche of the IMF comes on board, then it might help. But we know that those ones are short-term fixes. In the long term, everybody knows what we have to do. We have to broaden our export base, and we have to do more import substitution. We have to reduce our dependence on foreign financing. When foreigners are bringing the money, we are happy and we are singing. When it's time for them to take the money out, we see that the currency is wobbling. So I think over the long term, we have to diversify our export base. We have to do more domestic production and cut our imports, and then reduce our dependence on foreign money.
About this repatriation of profits, how do we ensure that these companies or multinational companies sort of keep some of these profits, and what are some of the ways for it?
It starts with the laws. I mean, if you look at our investment laws, we are too generous. But that is in itself is because we have an orientation that without foreign money, the economy cannot grow. That is a problem. We have to change our mindset and begin to say that no, we have to look inward. And looking inward, of course, means that we have to ensure that we are collecting the taxes. That doesn't necessarily mean imposing more indirect taxes, but ensuring that we modernize the economy, and then we use the digitization efforts to expand the tax base, make sure that more of the informal sector is paying the taxes. If we do that, and we change our orientation to say, okay, we have to look within Ghana and start implementing some of the ideas in Ghana beyond aid, then that will ensure that, if you are always in need of foreign financing, then you always find a way to give them the incentive to bring them in. And one of the incentives we give is that, hey, when you make profit, we allow you to freely repatriate them. So that is where we have to tackle. We have to start by focusing more on domestic resource mobilization.
Pressure is mounting on Ghana's creditors to expedite action to get an agreement with the country. This is expected to happen before the next International Monetary Fund Executive Board meeting to approve $600 million as second tranche of funds under its Economic Support Program. Speaking at the PwC 2024 Budget Digest, Director of Economic Strategy and Research at the Ministry of Finance, Dr. Alhassan Idrisu hinted that Ghana has met all its obligations and waiting on the creditors. There's more in the following report.
The 2024 budget was prepared on the back of the ongoing economic program with the International Monetary Fund. Speaking at the Budget Digest by auditing and accounting firm PwC, which is part of measures to ensure further and better understanding of the document, Director of Economic Strategy and Research at the Ministry of Finance, Dr. Alhassan Idrisu, disclosed that there is pressure on the country's creditors to complete the debt restructuring processes.
We need to make some progress with regards to the official bilateral creditors, with regards to the MOU that we have to reach with them, which would basically detail out release which is consistent with the debt parameters under the program. Some progress has been made. Ghana has done its part. So there's a lot of pressure on the creditors as well to also do their part so that that comforts or that MOU would come out. As soon as that comes out, then we are good to go with regards to the board. The prior action for the first review was actually preparing a budget which is consistent with the fiscal path under the IMF program, and we've done that.
Meanwhile, reacting to the policies in the budget, country partner at PwC, Vish Ashyangbo, told Joy Business that government is in a tight corner, hence the necessary measures taken in the budget.
For us at PwC, we find that the policy and the budget is actually consistent with expectations, in the sense that obviously we have an IMF program that sets out a framework and sets out some indicators that we are working towards. So really it was no surprise that the 2024 budget turned out as it did. Yeah.
Some of the stakeholders and panelists wish government could do more to provide relief for the business community.
Expecting, like I said, a lot of various reliefs, especially for the private sector and obviously for individuals, because times are very hard. Having said that, I can understand and appreciate the government also keeping it in such a way that it was sort of neutral.
The IMF has once again revised the date for the board meeting on the review of Ghana's program and the disbursement of the second tranche of the bailout package for the first week in December. This is what Joy Business has picked up from persons with the knowledge of the program. George Wiafe has more.
Move is more of a precautionary measure to deal with fresh concerns coming from China over the December 22 cutoff date for restructuring its debts. China rather wants March 2020 as a date that all funds that it has given to Ghana to be restructured. The IMF board's new date is to ensure that by that time all these concerns have been addressed. Sources say the action has nothing to do with Ghana not meeting the targets set under the program for fresh disbursement. The fund had initially set November 29 as a new date for the board to meet on Ghana from the Wednesday date of November 22, 2023. However, this new date is what Joy Business has picked up from persons working on the program. Sources say the fund is not looking at the full agreement to be reached between Ghana and the official creditor committee co-chaired by France and China, but rather just a letter of comfort that they have agreed on the terms to begin discussions to restructure Ghana's debts. Government, on the other hand, is optimistic that this letter of comfort may come way before the date that the board has set to review Ghana's program for fresh disbursements.
You're still watching Business Live with me, Emma Davis. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome. A look at one of our headline stories. Trade in the first half of 2023 shows that imports and exports were substantially higher than in the same period as in 2022. The value of both exports and imports were higher in the first half of 2023 by 24.3 billion cedis for imports and 19.6 billion cedis for exports. According to the 2023 mid-year trade report released by the Ghana Statistical Service, China and Canada are Ghana's preferred place of imports. There is more in this report.
According to the 2023 mid-year trade report, Ghana's trade dynamics have undergone a noteworthy transformation, marked by a trade surplus of 2.4 billion cedis in the first half of 2023. This is in contrast to the trade deficit of 2.3 billion cedis in the same period of 2022. Despite this positive trend, Ghana's reliance on exports of gold remains conspicuous, with the precious metal accounting for over 23.1% of all exports. Cocoa products and edible fruits and nuts accounted for 80.3% of total exports, while 10 food items imported in the first half of 2023 constituted more than 50%. Professor Samuel Kobnenim is the government statistician.
Our vulnerability from a food import point of view continue to relate with 4 countries and 5 specific commodities, with wheat contributing 10.9% of our total share of food imports. Canada is the major country we are importing from. Vietnam for rice, about 3/4 of the rice cereals that we are importing. Relying heavily on Brazil for sugar and meat, and relying on Belgium for about 1/5 of our meat imports. From a regional perspective, especially from an export point of view, Chair, clearly we have not taken advantage of what should happen in the other regional blocks. Minimal is happening in the East African region, in the Central African region, and even in the Southern African region. We are yet to harness the full potential of export in these blocks of regions in the African continent.
He tells Joy Business, China and Canada remains Ghana's preferred place of imports for both food and non-food items like cereals, grains products, sugar, meat, machinery, iron and steel, plastics, amongst others.
From a total import point of view, we identified our reliance on China to be predominant, and not predominant only in a single commodity, but a variety of commodities. We found the dominance of China in the area of chemical products, in the area of machinery and electrical equipment. So China comes up strongly as our major reliant country when it comes to imports. This gives us the concern to think about the political environment and the macroeconomic situation, so that in the event where there are any disorders in China, it wouldn't affect the macroeconomy that we have.
Reacting to this development, Director of ISE, Professor Peter Quarty, called for strategic policies that will enable the country become self-sufficient.
I think we should look within and also explore from the continent, especially from the sub-region, what we can import within the economy. There are some commodities that we import. You know, the details are all there. It's quite striking. What can we do to minimize some of this? What can we do to grow more of such commodities and rather consume what we grow? Otherwise, the effect on the exchange rate will continue to heighten, and that is not good for our economy. We should be independent. I think we are becoming too dependent on imported commodities, which doesn't augur well for us.
The 2023 mid-year trade report provides a comprehensive overview of trade statistics for the first half of the year, offering valuable insights for decision makers. For Joy Business, Pius Kojubaka.
The chief executive of the Ghana Tourism Development Company, Kwejo Enchi, has pledged that government will do all it can to meet the target of 2 million air travel arrivals by 2025 to increase revenue. According to him, government has worked assiduously to improve Ghana's visibility on the continent and beyond, to position the country as a preferred destination for tourists, trade and investment activities. He was speaking at the Middle East and Africa Duty Free Association conference.
The Middle East and Africa Duty-Free Association Conference brought together representatives of airports, retailers and premium brands all over the world to encourage meaningful exchanges between industry stakeholders. Participants of the conference recognized Africa as an important market for the travel and retail industry. In an interview with Joy Business, Chief Executive of the Ghana Tourism Development Company, Kojo Entry, said government has improved Ghana's visibility in the world, and this is expected to result in an increase in tourists arriving in the country.
More importantly is that for us in the tourism industry, it creates country visibility. That for the last 1 month, the last 6 months of planning of this conference, and in the last few weeks, at least within the MATFA ecosystem, the MATFA ecozone, everybody will be talking about Ghana. We have attracted over 300 participants and delegates from across the world. In the Middle East, from within Africa itself, from Asia, from the Americas, from Europe in general, all descending here in Accra to participate in a conference like this. So for us, the benefit is enormous and it's quite significant. Our hotels have received at least 300 guests in addition to the guests that we would have had, and that is significant for us. If averagely everybody is spending $200-300 a night, and they are here averagely for 3 nights, it gives us an idea of the kind of benefit the country is getting. As I mentioned, those who have been to our tourist sites, those who are buying local artifacts, those who are eating in our restaurants and enjoying our public transportation services, collectively will run perhaps into the millions of dollars just by attracting a conference like this. So it is not just for this conference, but it is a global strategy of the government that has been espoused by Honorable Dr. Awal severally, that we want to hit a target of $5 billion and hitting a target of 2 million passenger inbound traffic numbers coming through our ports. Once we translate this one in the next 2 to 3 years, his target is the year 2025 to be able to hit this target of 2 million inbound traffic plus $5 billion travel receipts. I think this is significant in contributing to the target that the Honorable Minister and His Excellency the President has set for the sector.
President of the Middle East and Africa Duty-Free Association, Sharif Tulan, said improved airport infrastructure is key to increasing commercial revenues.
Recent venue for this conference like Oman and Bahrain showed the transformative impact that airport infrastructure can have on commercial revenues. And we are certain that this will be the case in Abu Dhabi as well. Here in Africa, our industry also is reaping the benefits of investment in transport infrastructure and in tourism. That is not just in the established market like Kenya, Egypt, Seychelles, and South Africa, but also in emerging markets that merit our close attention and support. I am especially excited about our industry here in West Africa.
The Middle East and Africa Duty-Free Association also pledged to support the growth and development of the retail industry in Ghana and Africa.
That's all for Business Live today with me, Emma Davis. For more business news, do log on to myjoyonline.com and look at our stories there. Cedi to record single-digit depreciation against dollar in 2024. That's according to EIU. Have a good evening. See you tomorrow.